Hey guys, Rich here. Last week I did a video on Project 2025 pointing out that the lefties were all trying to say that Donald Trump created Project 2025 and that it was going to be a disaster for our democracy, as they say everything they don't like is going to be a disaster for our democracy. And I know that you guys in my audience understand that Trump had nothing to do with the creation of Project 2025. He doesn't really talk about it and he hasn't endorsed it. Project 2025 was created by the Heritage Foundation, and there are over 100 conservative groups who have now signed on to it, except Donald Trump. But I just found this video on X of a lefty going bullet point by bullet point on something called Agenda 47. To the lefties, each bullet point is the end of humanity as we know it. But to us, it gives us even more reasons to vote for Trump in November. You see, Donald Trump created Agenda 47, not Project 2025. And I think Trump's campaign folks should commandeer this video I'm about to show you and use it as the greatest Trump campaign advertisement ever. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I'm going to play this video here I found on X where this lefty woman runs point by point through Agenda 47 so that you can understand what we're dealing with the left in this country. Everything that seems wholesome and good and pro-American to our side, the lefties see as some kind of evil bent on our democracy, even though we live in a republic. So let's get into this. Let's watch it.
He is made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47, and you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history.
I don't have a problem with that, do you? We have over 12 million illegal aliens who came into the country under Joe Biden alone. We've had over 30 million, maybe even 40 million before that. I know that the Democrats love to keep saying 11 million. They've been saying that since the 1990s. They want you to believe that for every illegal that comes over the border, one leaves, because that's the only way you could keep it at 11 million. But we know that it's between 30 and 40 million. And now we've got over 12 million that came in. But if Trump pulls that off, because these people, these illegals that Trump wants to deport, they are taking jobs, they are taking cities' resources. Look, we've done videos in the past that show that in blue cities, that minority groups are getting really angry because they're the ones paying the taxes for the resources that come from their local government. And the illegals, Joe Biden's illegals, are eating them all up, leaving nothing for them. So I think that's a really good thing. He thinks it's bad.
He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking.
I think human trafficking is one of the biggest problems that we have. In fact, they're saying that the United States is the worst country for child human trafficking because there's more money here. So I think that as a deterrent of death penalty for someone that does human trafficking, I really don't have a problem with that. Score one for me.
He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide.
I think the states should be the ones that handle. You can't have, for all 50 states, one size fits all. It just doesn't work that way. Each state, the people who live in those states are different. They have the same American values, but they have different local values and customs. And you can't have a federal government telling people in California, in Southern California, the same things you're telling them in Louisiana or in Florida or Georgia or Chicago. You just can't. So that's another good one. Score another one.
He will put prayer back into school and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs.
Well, I believe in that as well. A lot of black people don't like affirmative action either because it makes them look like tokens. I mean, the African-American community has come a long way, wouldn't you say? I mean, they've come into their own and they can do anything anybody else can. There's nothing holding them back. Okay, sure, there's racism still in the country. There's always going to be, but this race-based education is this critical race theory, what he's talking about. I mean, it's teaching children to become racists. It's teaching children that their parents are inherently racist, that racism is systemic through the country. It really isn't. So I think the schools should remain in the states and they should be the ones locally to make decisions of school curriculum and whatnot, and stop pushing the crazy radical values of the Democrats from the feds down to all 50 states.
He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care.
Well, first of all, the Affordable Care Act, premiums skyrocketed under that. I mean, there's a lot of people that do like the Affordable Care Act, but I think the Affordable Care Act caused a lot of problems. Obamacare premiums went up. I mean, it wasn't anything fascinating for anyone. Now, sure, there's going to be people where they were able to get Obamacare insurance, health insurance, and it did help them, and they didn't spend a ton of money. And that's because of all the subsidies that you and I, taxpayers, other taxpayers, that they have to pay for it.
Which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I don't think that children should be getting gender-affirming care. I think you should just let the kids alone. Let them be kids and make up their minds when they're adults. Don't you? Why do the lefties have a problem with that? Why do they always want to attack the children? Why would you create a trend to make children think that they should be the opposite gender? Why? What is up with that? Is that a Marxist thing that you, or queer theory, where you just want to create chaos and just be counter to everything?
Except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available.
Who cares? Who cares? What does Viagra and Cialis have to do with gender affirming care? Why did she just throw that in? It makes no sense.
We'll propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress.
I'm very for that, because you have people in Congress who suck in both parties. They suck. Even the independents. Look at Bernie Sanders. And they've been there for years, because it's very difficult to beat an incumbent, because the incumbent gets all the money from their party. So during campaign season. So it's very difficult to get rid of them. We have term limits on the president of the United States. I think we should have term limits on Congress as well. And so I think actually doing this would be a really good thing. Have term limits on members of Congress. So there's another win.
He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and...
Well, why not? Nobody else is. Look, there's a plethora of evidence that the Republicans in the House, that they have gotten and gone over, that shows that the Biden crime family received tons of money from China, from Ukraine, even some from Russia. I mean, they keep saying that Trump is the Russia kid, right? Well, I mean, Biden got like over $3 million from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. Well, why the hell did they get that? And what were they doing in Ukraine, where they were getting money laundered to Hunter as if he had a no-show job for $82,000 a month? So, of course, Trump wants to do that. That's another plus for our side.
Any of his adversaries or political rivals. He will immediately pardon all of the January 6th.
That's a lie. He's not. He never said he would pardon all January 6ers. Trump said that he would look into pardoning January 6 defendants who were charged with trespassing. So we have on the videos where the cops opened the doors and people walked in, and then they got charged for trespassing. That's entrapment. And you can't be charged for trespassing when they open the doors and say, hey, come on in. So I'm for that, too.
He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities.
Well, why not? Woke cities like New York, you take your life in your own hands. There's some cities in New Jersey like Camden, you take your life in your own hands. Philadelphia, many areas, you take your life in your own hands. So what is she talking about? Why are lefties not for law and order? Why do they not want to strengthen police? It's because they think all cops are crooked. There are some bad cops, but the majority of them are not crooked. They're very straight up. They love their communities that they serve.
On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection.
Well, the fact of the matter is that's what NATO was for. NATO was created, if I remember correctly, to protect Europe from the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union is long gone. There's really no need for NATO anymore. And the specific country to protect was Germany. But then what did Germany do recently? Remember when Trump went to the UN and gave a speech about the Germans should be careful with taking their natural gas from Russia because then Russia will hold it against them, and they laughed at him. But then look what happened. That's what Russia did.
He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America.
There was no travel ban. You know who had a travel ban? Barack Obama had a travel ban because Barack Obama had a ban on people coming from Iran, and he literally had the word Muslim in the ban. In Trump's case, I hope the lefties are paying attention. What happened was the Obama administration gave the Trump administration these 6 countries that they said were the most likely where ISIS agents, ISIS operatives would blend in with refugees coming into the country. And all Trump did was said, okay, well, if Washington, D.C. can't tell us, if the FBI and all these other, the CIA couldn't tell us like what the hell's going on, then we're going to put a ban on people from those countries. He never used the word Muslim. Okay. The strongest, most populated Muslim countries out there were not on the list. So it was not a Muslim ban. So this woman's lying again, but I'm all for it. If there's terrorists who want to come through our porous border right now, right? And we know for a fact that there's over 400 terrorists that got through and were caught. But what about the ones that didn't?
He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities.
Well, I don't see a problem with young Black and Hispanic families saying, you know what, right now I can't even see the American dream. I can't even see it. With Biden's inflation, with the cost of food, with the cost of gasoline, with the cost of heating our homes, I can't even fathom it. So Trump wants to create freedom cities so that young people will be able to get a start on life. I don't see a problem with that. They see it probably as like a prison colony, whereas that's what I thought of their idea of the 15-minute cities, which means you don't get to drive your car. You can't drive. The 15-minute, the concept of it is that the area that you live in, you can get anywhere you need to go in a 15-minute walk. Well, that is kind of a prison because you're not allowed outside your 15-minute city. It's all part of Agenda 21. You're not allowed outside of your 15-minute city. That's not what these freedom cities are all about. So he needs to bone up on it.
Cities. He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation seeking.
Well, why not? Electric vehicles are not there yet. Plus, they're saying that the electric vehicles would create more harm to the environment than what we have now on the gas cars.
To replace that with the development of a flying car. He believes that we could create a car that vertically takes off.
Why couldn't we? We're the United States of America. We created helicopters, didn't we? England created the Harrier jet. Why couldn't we do that?
He will remove all of the limits on American natural gas exports and...
Well, why not? Why wouldn't you want to be the #1 natural gas export in the world? And that means that's because it means we have enough here to stay self-sufficient for a very long time.
Drill, baby, drill for oil domestically.
Well, why not? See, what lefties don't understand is that any nation's economy is based primarily on their energy system. Okay, the energy sector is what drives everything in a capitalist society. They hate capitalism, so they're going to hate the fossil fuel industry. But look what happened when Biden got in and wrote and signed 40 executive orders on day one. And a lot of them had to do with illegals coming over the border, but a lot of them had to do with trashing our energy sector, specifically the oil companies. So look what it did to our economy. Right? I mean, it destroyed our economy, and then the government had to do all that spending to make people get over the shock of it, and that spending created inflation, which hurt the people in the end again anyway.
He will impose a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese imports. He will.
Yes, I would do 100%. I mean, think about this. Trump, when they did that bloodbath hoax, right, a couple months ago, Trump pointed out that Xi Jinping wants to create auto factories down in Mexico, right there, and that he's going to ship them up into the United States to screw with our automakers. Now, the automakers like what Trump said because they're a union and they want jobs. So Trump told Xi, because he said this down in Mexico at the border, he said this in a speech. He said, I told Xi that you think you're going to bring those cars into the U.S., I'm putting a 100% tariff on them. Nobody's going to buy them. Now, that's a real president who is protecting a very big market in the United States where there's a hell of a lot of workers. Okay? I mean, we're not just talking the manufacturers of them. We're talking about the dealerships. We're talking about a lot of things that have to do with that industry. So I'm for that.
Extend the 2017 tax cuts and drop the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%.
Why not? Every time you lower taxes, the government gets higher revenues and the people are better off. Why are lefties against that? See, they might not understand. Look, when you lower taxes, first of all, Trump lowered taxes across the board in 2016 and 2017. That's when they did it. And he reformed the tax code as well. But see, they don't want to admit, but yes, rich people got more money back on tax cuts because they paid more into it. Okay. But the lower classes, they got a higher percentage of their money back. And Trump did that intentionally so that they can't say, tax cuts for the rich. But here's what happens. When you lower taxes for the guys that create jobs, I never got a job from a poor guy. I don't know if you did or not, but I never did. So when you lower taxes for the job creators, they just create more jobs. They either extend their current business or create another one. And people have to run those jobs for them. And when people start working to run those jobs, what do? They pay taxes, right? So the tax revenues always go up. So why not keep taxes low?
He will push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time.
Well, that's because the Second Amendment says you do have that right. And the Second Amendment, see, the reason why he would do that is because there's so many violations of the Second Amendment already at the federal level and all the state levels. Because when it says shall not be infringed, that pretty much meant that the federal government couldn't even have a conversation about it officially. Okay, so that's why he's saying this. That's why he wants to do it, because the Biden administration and the Obama administration, but specifically the Biden administration, is going after the FFLs, they're shutting them down by saying, you didn't cross this T or dot this I. And so Trump just wants to make sure, look, if you want to exercise your Second Amendment right to protect yourself and your family, you're going to be able to. I don't have a problem with that.
And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns that's been passed in the last several years.
Why shouldn't he? It goes against the Second Amendment. See, the lefties are post-constitutional unless it helps them. If there's something in the Constitution that will help their argument, they're all for it, and you just don't believe in the Constitution. But overall, like things like the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, free speech and freedom of religion, they just can't stand that. They are post-Constitution. They don't believe in the Second Amendment.
He will demand that Europe pay back all the money we gave Ukraine, and then he will use all of that money to recruit for the American military.
So why should the United States be the largest supporter of a war that didn't have to happen? Why do lefties believe that? What's that all about? Why shouldn't, if the Ukraine war is protecting the rest of Europe because they say Putin will go right through and hit these other countries, NATO countries even, then why shouldn't they put some money up for it? Some countries are putting some money up, but not in equal proportionment to the United States. They're not even a threat to us. We had no national security interests in Ukraine, and yet look what Biden has done. Because I think he made it a personal ATM for the Democrats.
And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then he will...
Well, the reason why is because these universities, Harvard, Yale, you name it, they all have endowments in the billions of dollars. And they never use them. They could use those to create programs to put disadvantaged kids, poor kids that have the smarts to get into these schools through college, but they don't do it. Why not? What are they holding on to it for? Endowments were given to build wings to their schools, which sometimes they do, to help students, but they don't. So Trump wants to say, look, either start using the endowments or we're going to tax you for it. So why should they not be taxed on their endowments?
Use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent.
Why not? I mean, we have other systems that are online. Why not? There's a lot of homeschooling programs that are pretty good that are online. So why not? What is against the fact that you can get an online degree from home? Why is that a problem? I mean, as long as it's on the up and up and they have the credentials for students, why not? A lot of students can do online at home, but they can't travel to a university every day. I don't see a problem with it.
So that's Agenda 47.
Yeah, that's Agenda 47. And folks, I think Agenda 47 is a good thing. I mean, these people on the left, this is what we're dealing with. Anything good for America is bad for them. Anything bad for America is good for them. All right. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you don't miss anything. I'll see you in the next one.
Every day I'm looking for a way to return to the time when everything was easy to learn. Don't know when it started to get so serious.